Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation will come to order. Today we'll hear from 4 nominees. David Fink for Administrator of the Federal Railroad Administration, David Fogle for Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director General of the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service, Pierre Genton for General Counsel of the Department of Commerce, and Robert Gleason for the Amtrak Board of Directors. Congratulations to each of you on your nomination. I'm eager to hear more about your qualifications for your respective roles. Let's start with the Department of Commerce. As General Counsel, Mr. Genton will draw on his experiences as an in-house attorney to provide legal advice to the Secretary and the Department's various agencies. Mr. Genton is a former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York who has held legal and management roles at major companies, including most recently as the Chief Legal Officer at McKinsey & Company. He has lectured at Yale Law School, Columbia Law School, and the Wharton School of Business, which is a Harvard grad I will try not to hold against you. A favorite of the president's, that would be Wharton, as we all know. Mr. Genton will provide strategic legal counsel and support Secretary Lutnick's efforts to address critical policy challenges, such as reallocating spectrum, advancing AI, and building the nation's manufacturing base. David Fogle is well-versed in international economic diplomacy. As Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director General of the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service, he will strive to increase foreign direct investment in the United States and remove trade barriers on American exports. During the first Trump administration, Mr. Fogle served as Chief of Staff at the Export-Import Bank and as a senior advisor to the Undersecretary of Economic Growth at the State Department. If confirmed, he will work to counterbalance the CCP's expanding footprint in global markets and to encourage our allies to buy more products and services made in America. Now let me turn to David Fink, the President's nominee for Administrator of the Federal Railroad Administration. As a fifth-generation railroader, Mr. Fink knows the ins and outs of the industry. He led Pan Am Railways when it was the largest regional railroad in the country, and he helped negotiate the sale of the company to CSX in 2022. Pan Am's employee injury rate was consistently lower than the Class II railroad industry average for the decade concluding his tenure as CEO. He is deeply committed to the FRA's core mission, safety, and he will ensure that it remains top of mind in all regulatory actions. Finally, Robert Gleason, who has been nominated to Amtrak's Board of Directors. Mr. Gleason will draw on his time serving on transportation commissions in Pennsylvania to enhance the passenger experience across Amtrak's network. I look forward to hearing how he will expand Amtrak's rail service to underserved areas, improve its safety record, and insist on transparency regarding executive compensation. The nominees before us will champion regulatory clarity and strategic investment in American industries. Our rail nominees, in particular, will take practical steps to improve the reliability, efficiency, and safety of moving people and goods across the country. Let's hear more about how they will help build a stronger and more prosperous America. And with that, I will turn to Senator Peters for his opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to our 4 nominees here today. And certainly also want to welcome your family and friends who are here to support you through this process. Our first nominee this morning is David Fink to be the Administrator of the Federal Railroad Administration. You know, Americans rely on the U.S. rail network to move more than roughly 28 million passengers and 1.6 billion tons of goods each and every year. But when things don't go well, entire communities suffer. We saw this in East Palestine in 2023. And yesterday was also the 10-year anniversary of the deadly Amtrak 188 derailment in Philadelphia, an accident that is actually very personal to me. It was the day that we lost Rachel Jacobs, a family friend of mine with deep roots in the Detroit area. Rail safety is certainly not something to take lightly. Mr. Fink, it will be up to you to ensure the safety of passengers and community members throughout our rail system. That is why I have concerns about your safety record running Pan Am Railways from 2006 to 2022, which under your leadership had the higher than average mainline track derailment rates and a series of documented safety issues. We need leadership at FRA that will put safety and accountability first, and I hope to hear how you plan to address that here today. We're also considering Robert Gleason to serve as director of Amtrak's board. In my home state of Michigan, we're working to improve and expand rail service to our 3 lines, the Wolverine, the Blue Water, and the Pierre Marquette, and looking to bring back Amtrak service to the historic Michigan Central Station in downtown Detroit, as well as cross-border service to Canada. That's something that we cannot do without the cooperation of both of our rail nominees, Mr. Fink and Mr. Gleason, and I hope you will agree with me today that infrastructure investments are not optional for Amtrak's future. They're going to be absolutely essential going forward. Our next nominee is Pierre Genton, nominated to be the General Counsel of the Commerce Department. The Counsel General is responsible for providing legal guidance to the Secretary as well as across the department. Since February, Mr. Genton has been serving as Senior Advisor in the Office of Secretary. Unfortunately, in only a few months, we've already seen the lasting damage that can happen when there isn't responsible leadership at the helm, from dismantling NOAA to cutting support for our manufacturers as well as our entrepreneurs here in the country. Mr. Genton, I expect you to answer questions about these disruptive actions at the department. I will also note my concern here that you have not yet provided full information specified in the committee's questionnaire, which is expected of all of our nominees. Committee staff also advised me that you abruptly left your staff interview early. I hope that your testimony here today shows more regard for this committee, our constitutional duty to advise and consent. Our final nominee is David Fogel, nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director General of the United States and Foreign Commercial Service. If confirmed, you will direct the Global Markets Unit of the International Trade Administration and be responsible for assisting and advocating for U.S. businesses in international markets. To state it plainly, that'll be a difficult task given the President's destabilizing tariff agenda. These tariffs will not only raise prices, but provoke retaliation, making it harder for American businesses to export their goods and services and harder to work with our allies to counter Chinese influence. I look forward to your answers on how you plan to keep these departments focused amidst the chaos created by President Trump. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Peters, and I will note for the record that as chairman, I've endeavored to give the minority full opportunity to vet nominees, to consider their qualifications, to consider their background. I will point out that the minority has had significant time to review the nominees before us today. The nominees' committee questionnaires have been submitted for weeks, 2 of them since late March. Mr. Genton's committee questionnaire has been submitted since March 24th. On May 2nd, the minority emailed Mr. Genton's team and asked him to clarify a few items. He met with the minority for more than an hour and a half last Thursday. He submitted an addendum, and he will be producing anything outstanding by the end of the week. Yesterday, Ranking Member Cantwell had the opportunity to review FBI background investigation reports for all of the nominees before us today, including Mr. Genton. Unfortunately, she had to cancel due to a scheduling issue. My team and I remain committed to a bipartisan, careful, and thorough vetting process. That's what we're doing here today. Ranking Member Cantwell, like all members of this committee, will have ample opportunity to question the nominees, as well as to submit questions for the record. And I'm happy to continue working with her and her team throughout this process, and so I trust are the nominees. With that, I want to recognize our friend and colleague, Senator McCormick from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to introduce Mr. Gleason. Senator McCormick, welcome to the Commerce Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and my Senate colleagues on the committee. Thank you for having me this morning. I'm really honored to be here to introduce a fine Pennsylvanian and a good friend, Rob Gleason, for his nomination to be a member of Amtrak's Board of Directors. Rob is a proud son of Johnstown in Cambria County, where his family has lived for generations. After graduating from the University of Pennsylvania, Rob went to Air Force officer training school, and served on active duty from 1962 to 1965, eventually retiring from the Air Force Reserves as a captain. He's a highly successful businessman who took over his family's storied Johnstown-based insurance business in 1970 and continues to serve as president of the organization. He's also an experienced public servant who has served the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania under governors of both parties. Under Dick Thornburg, Rob served as Secretary of the Commonwealth, where he worked with and got to know my dad, placing him in charge of the Pennsylvania Department of State. And Governor Casey, Bob Casey, appointed Rob to the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, which oversees one of the Commonwealth's most important highways. Because of his service there and on the State Transportation Commission, Rob Gleason will bring to Amtrak significant experience in overseeing major transportation networks. And being from Johnstown, Rob knows firsthand and better than anyone the importance of rail service to rural communities and will be a strong and independent voice on the board. As an Air Force veteran and community leader, Rob embodies the mantra taught to us at West Point: duty, honor country, and is exactly the type of public servant we should be calling upon to serve. I'm honored to be here with you today, Rob. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to introduce him this morning, and I urge all the members of this committee to support the nomination of this great Pennsylvanian, this great American. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator McCormick. And for the record, I will note that we've seen a miracle, a West Point graduate praising an airman on the record. I suppose it could be worse. You could be praising a sailor, and that might be a bridge too far. And I assume Senator Sullivan's going to ask your views on the Marines any minute now.
We've been friends for a long time. He's an honorary member of the Army.
Well, you are welcome to stay, but I know you have a busy schedule, so thank you for being here. And we will now turn to opening statements, and I recognize Mr. Fink for his opening statement.
Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell or Peters, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Being President Trump's nominee for Federal Railroad Administrator is the honor of a lifetime. I'm grateful to President Trump for placing his trust in me, and I am deeply thankful to Secretary Duffy for his confidence in my abilities to lead the FRA. I'm joined today by my wife Linda and son Andrew. My daughter Hillary is 8 months pregnant with our first grandchild and is unable to travel. My wife and family have been very supportive of my career, and I'm forever thankful for that support. I sit here today before the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee. I think back to my first trip to Washington in 1966. I was 5 years old. My grandfather, Andy Fink, and I hopped on a Pennsylvania Railroad clocker from 30th Street Station. We spent the day touring the city. The thing I most remember is my visit to the Smithsonian American History Museum. In that museum is a very large green Southern Railway steam locomotive. I still love to visit that spot and look at that locomotive. Little did I know at that time I would be a fifth-generation railroader and nominee to lead the Federal Railroad Administration. I got my start in the railroad industry as a 15-year-old summer track worker for Conrail in 1976. I had 2 co-op jobs with the Boston and Maine Railroad while at Northeastern University. After graduate school at Penn State, I worked for General Motors and was able to see the transportation user side of the railroad business. I've also worked in the railroad supply business, running a railroad cross-time manufacturing company. In 1998, I joined Guilford Rail System as Executive Vice President, and in 2006, I became President of Pan Am Railways, the nation's largest regional railroad. Our freight railroad system is the envy of the world. It moves what the nation needs for energy. It moves what the population eats. It moves the parts to the automobile assembly lines, and it takes the finished vehicles to a final distribution location. It moves the containers from our ports. More importantly, it does this safely. Over the course of FRA's existence, freight railroad safety record has been on a positive trajectory for both train accidents and employee casualties. If confirmed, FRA will be dedicated to continuing that safety trend under my leadership. The nation's rail network also moves millions of people across our great country. Amtrak, the national passenger rail system, provides intercity passenger rail service throughout and across the country, while a host of commuter rail systems provides more local service. It is critical the agency focus on its primary mission, which is one of safety first. We also need to refresh government regulations, innovating where possible and removing burdensome and outdated roadblocks. The railroad in the United States the railroad industry in the United States has been developing state-of-the-art technology to make a safe system even safer. Much of this technology is ready to be deployed, and I look forward to ensuring FRA is a partner in advancing safety innovations and not a hindrance. If confirmed, one of my first jobs will be to get this safety technology out in the field, working to make the rail system even safer. Another way I want to ensure FRA is focused on safety and efficiency is through its grant programs, which have grown significantly over the last 4 years. I know firsthand how the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements, CRISI program, can support critical rail safety projects. I can also imagine there is room for improvement in the way FRA selects and delivers taxpayer-funded projects. I look forward to working with the many dedicated professionals at the FRA. They have an extremely important job regulating the safe operation of our nation's railroads. I also look forward to working with the employees of the railroads, both the management and labor. If I am fortunate to be confirmed as administrator to the Federal Railroad Administration, I will devote myself to helping the Secretary promote safe and efficient freight and passenger transportation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This concludes my statement. I'll be happy to answer the committee's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fink. Now recognize Mr. Fogel for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, Senator Peters, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today for what is my second Senate confirmation hearing for the position of Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Global Markets and Director General of the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. I am honored to be nominated by President Donald J. Trump for this position, and I also want to thank Secretary Lutnick for his support of my nomination. I also want to thank the committee for the opportunity to meet with many of you and your staff members leading up to the hearing. Unfortunately, my family is not able to be with me today, given that my 3 daughters have exams this week back in Connecticut, and they already missed 2 days of high school to attend my first confirmation hearing. I do, however, want to thank my sister Linda for attending and joining us today. The Global Markets Division of the Department of Commerce plays a key role in implementing the priorities of President Trump and supporting the administration's goals of strengthening the American economy, supporting and creating American jobs, and boosting our economic and national security. The Global Markets team works with foreign governments to ensure fair access for U.S. companies, promotes the export of goods and services for U.S. companies of all sizes, and facilitates foreign direct investment into the United States. In many respects, my private and public sector experience, as well as my educational background, have prepared me well for this important responsibility. From a young age, my father instilled in me a strong sense of public service. His encouragement led me to attend the Georgetown School of Foreign Service. I stayed at Georgetown for 4 more years to earn my JD and MBA degrees. While in school, I interned for all 3 branches of the federal government, in the White House, on Capitol Hill for 2 U.S. senators, and for a federal judge, as well as for former UN Ambassador Jeane Kirkpatrick. My professional career began at Sullivan & Cromwell in New York City as a corporate attorney focused on domestic and international transactions. From there, I went on to build 3 companies in 3 innovative sectors, continuing to negotiate cross-border transactions and manage large teams. I also had the privilege of serving in President Trump's first administration. Initially, I was the chief of staff at the Export-Import Bank, where I helped oversee a team of professionals who executed billions of dollars of transactions for small, medium, and large U.S. companies. I also helped establish the bank's new financing program to compete with China, which the U.S. Congress had just wisely mandated. Subsequently, I moved over to the State Department, where I served as Senior Advisor and Chief Business Development Officer under Keith Kroc, the Undersecretary for Economic Growth. There, I continued my work helping U.S. companies compete with China and win deals abroad. I hope to leverage all of my experience to help execute the Trump administration's strategy of expanding exports abroad while increasing investments here at home. Our great American businesses produce the best goods and services in the world. They just need a level playing field to compete and succeed in the global marketplace. If confirmed, I will work closely with the members of this committee and with Congress as a whole to ensure that the Global Markets Unit of the International Trade Administration is as effective and successful as possible. Thank you again for your consideration of my nomination, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fogel. Now recognize Mr. Genton.
Chairman Cruz, Senator Peters, and distinguished members of the Senate Commerce Committee. It's a great honor to testify before you this morning as nominee for General Counsel of the Commerce Department. I'm deeply grateful to President Trump for nominating me, to Secretary Lutnick for his leadership of the department, and to this committee for considering my nomination. I'm grateful to family and friends joining me today, my wonderful wife, Raina, our son, Micah, and my siblings, Ed and Danielle. My mother, Adele, and our daughter, Ariella, are watching on live stream. My father and teacher, Dr. Benjamin Genton, passed away last year. He is with me today in spirit. The honor of appearing before you today belongs entirely to my parents, who moved our family from South Africa to the United States nearly 50 years ago, so that my siblings and I could live as free, proud, and productive citizens. It was the American bicentennial. I was 9 years old. My parents lost no time taking us to Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington, fostering in us a deep love of American history and culture, and ensuring that we internalize the great American ideals of freedom, faith, and responsibility. My parents worked hard and overcame many obstacles to become respected professionals in American medicine and law, and equally respected members of their community. I have tried to emulate my parents personally and professionally, and as a lawyer myself, I've been fortunate to work in government, the private sector, and academia. My life is a testament to the transformative power of American opportunity. As a young lawyer, I served in the Department of Justice as an assistant United States attorney for the Southern District of New York. I came away from that experience with deep respect for the authority that government lawyers exercise and the responsibility that comes with that power. After government service, I spent nearly 20 years at one of the world's largest financial services companies, advising on significant legal and regulatory matters in the banking sector. As a business lawyer, I saw firsthand the importance of intelligent and effective governmental oversight of industry. But equally, I learned the importance of respecting and empowering innovation, hard work, and the spirit of entrepreneurship that have enabled our country to secure its leading position in global commerce. I drew the same conclusions during my years as a partner at a leading U.S. law firm. For the past 6 years, I served as chief legal officer at McKinsey, an American company that pioneered the profession of management consulting nearly a century ago. As the first lawyer elected a senior partner at McKinsey and the first to serve on its management team, I counseled the firm's leadership on legal and risk, as well as business and cultural issues. Over the past 3 decades, I've also been active in the academic and nonprofit arenas, serving multiple times as a visiting professor of law, a lecturer in ethics, and as editor of a book on negotiating the resolution of business disputes. I've been a trustee of many nonprofit boards, including the Practicing Law Institute, a nearly century-old legal education organization, and the Touro Synagogue Foundation, which preserves an 18th century synagogue in Rhode Island that symbolizes our nation's commitment to religious freedom. I believe my public, private, and academic experience, my commitment to the rule of law, and my desire to help safeguard the well-being of our country equip me well to serve proudly as General Counsel of the Department of Commerce. If I'm honored to be confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee and with stakeholders inside and outside government to help augur an era of greatness for American commerce and prosperity for our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Genton. Now recognize Mr. Gleason. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz.
Can you turn on the volume on your microphone?
Thank you, Chairman Cruz and Senator Peters and the rest of the committee for allowing me to come before you today. and I want to thank Senator David McCormick for introducing me today. I'm pleased to have my wife Jean, my grandson Jonathan, and my sister Pam here supporting me today. My passion for transportation and community development has been a lifelong journey, one deeply rooted in my experiences serving in government at the county, state, city, and national levels. Growing up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, I saw firsthand how transportation systems can either connect or isolate communities. It is this personal understanding that drives my commitment to bring better passenger rail service to the small towns across America. In the first half of the 20th century, my hometown of Johnstown was connected to the rest of the world by the Pennsylvania Railroad. Trains with iconic names like the Red Arrow, the Broadway Limited, Fort Pitt, and the Clevelander. 25 daily passenger trains all stopped in Johnstown. I was a regular rail passenger traveling back and forth to Philadelphia to attend the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School. There you are, Mr. Cruz, another Wharton School guy. Our town was bypassed by the interstate highway system, one of only 7 cities in the United States of over 100,000 population to miss the interstate, and most airlines overflew us. The region began a downhill slide as passenger train service dwindled, and today we are only served by 2 passenger trains. In addition to my personal experiences with the benefits of rail connections and the potentially devastating effects of a community not being on the main transportation grid, I'm honored to be nominated to join the Amtrak board to continue in public service. My civilian government experience make me well qualified for the role of Amtrak director, and I also proudly served our country as a captain in the United States Air Force with 4 years active duty and 6 years in the reserve. I currently serve my community as president of the local board of education, and I've served 10 years as a borough councilman. I've served as Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a member of the Pennsylvania State Transportation Advisory Committee, the Pennsylvania State Transportation Committee, 4 years as a member of the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, and Secretary Sam Skinner appointed me to the National Motor Carrier Advisory Committee. In 1982, I was appointed to one of the first state government committees in the nation to study high-speed rail. The 9-member committee was appointed by Governor Dick Thornburgh with a charge to study the feasibility of constructing a high-speed passenger rail line from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. This wonderful experience will certainly help me as a member of the Amtrak board. Economically, passenger rail can be a powerful engine for growth. Delivering a rail project generates thousands of construction, engineering, and operational jobs. Once operational, trains attract riders who spend money in the local economies, especially near stations. Entire communities can be revitalized by the presence of a reliable train service. In short, when done right, passenger rail doesn't move people, it drives prosperity. If confirmed as a director of Amtrak, I will work diligently to improve and expand passenger rail service across America in a fiscally responsible manner. Amtrak benefits greatly from taxpayer dollars, and I will be sure the money is spent in an efficient and productive manner. I have spent a lifetime in public service, living with Pennsylvania's sunshine laws, so I'm very proud to support more board transparency. In conclusion, I hope to gain this committee's approval to join the Amtrak board because I firmly believe the United States needs passenger rail service and that it can be delivered in an efficient and responsible way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. All right, Mr. Fink, we'll start with you. You served as the head of the largest Class II railroad in the United States. Like all rail executives, you face safety challenges, and I imagine you learned a great deal. In your opening statement, you made a point of describing the Federal Railroad Administration's primary mission as safety first. How does your professional experience shape your perspective on rail safety, and what should the FRA be doing to improve the safety of the rail system?
Thank you for the question, Senator. In my career, I really wanted to work towards 0 injuries and 0 accidents, and that was a push when I was at Pan Am. Another thing I really wanted to work on was a cooperative and collaborative relationship. In that area, I worked very closely with all of our operating labor unions and would have 16 meetings per year in the field with my staff, meeting with the general chairman and local chairman and any people that had safety issues. When we first started doing that about 10 years ago, there was a lot of, I'll say, friction between the parties. We fixed a lot of the issues that were safety related, and as we came towards the merger with CSX, we were down to just a handful of issues. So working cooperatively and collaboratively was important. I also think it's important that as railroad management, we use tools that are available to us. So our railroad volunteered 2 times to do a safety culture assessment with the Short Line Safety Institute. We were one of the original pilot project people where the Safety Institute came in and looked to see if we had a safety culture, which when they came in 2015, they said we had a safety culture, it was a work in progress. We had another one in 2018. We still had work to do, but things that needed to be discussed and things that needed to be worked on is senior management engaged in safety and wants to see a safe workplace, and they found that we did. Are we giving people the tools they need to do their work? And we found that we did. We were one of the only railroads, I think, that's done 2 of these assessments, while some of the larger railroads haven't done any. So our business is very unforgiving. If something goes wrong, it can lead to a catastrophic injury or fatality. So every day we need to be out there stretching for 0 injuries and 0 accidents.
Thank you. Mr. Fogel, you have extensive experience in international business and trade. What are some of the non-tariff barriers to trade that limit our exports, and how do you plan to address them?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. This is something that's very eye-opening to me. I've been learning quite a bit about it. I think it would surprise some people to know that we're importing $3 billion of beef from Australia, at least last year, and we're exporting $0 of American beef to Australia. Same thing with
As a Texan, that pisses me off.
Of course, that's why I mentioned it. I started with beef. But Argentina, same problem. Because of a regulation that's in place in Argentina regarding mad cow's disease from 2002, we still can't export beef to Argentina. Cars to Japan, South Korea, Germany, we're not selling American cars there due to various import requirements. So these are more insidious. The non-tariff barriers are more insidious than tariffs. Tariffs are simple to understand, difficult to deal with. But I think non-tariff barriers are even more challenging. The professional team at Global Markets have years of experience dealing with this. I look forward to working with them to bring these barriers down under President Trump's leadership.
Thank you. Mr. Gettin, the Department of Commerce manages federal spectrum allocation through the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA. As General Counsel, you may be asked to advise on NTIA's legal authority to reallocate spectrum for commercial use. I'm hoping you can address the legal safeguards that are in place now to mitigate supposed national security risks due to reallocation. One key authority is the Commercial Spectrum Enhancement Act, which is 47 U.S.C. Section 928, which established a spectrum relocation fund to compensate agencies for relocating or upgrading systems for spectrum sharing. No federal user, including the Department of Defense, can be displaced without a fully funded, OMB-approved transition plan. Similarly, according to statute, DoD shall not surrender its frequencies unless and until NTIA identifies alternative bands with comparable technical characteristics. These alternative bands must be jointly certified by the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Mr. Gettin, do you agree that these legal requirements mitigate national security risks due to the reallocation of spectrum?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, I very much do agree. I think there's no question that the statutory protections for spectrum that is associated with national security are very robust and strong, and if I'm honored to be confirmed, I'll certainly focus on ensuring that those strictures are observed.
Great. Okay, final question, Mr. Gleason, for you. Amtrak has typically received between $1 billion and $3 billion annually in government subsidies, but the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021 provided up to $66 billion in additional funding. Needless to say, Congress wants to ensure that money is being well spent, especially now that certain projects like the Gateway Program and the Baltimore Tunnel have ballooned in costs. But just last week, an internal investigation by Amtrak's Officer of the Inspector General uncovered a $12 million healthcare fraud scheme involving 119 employees, the largest criminal conspiracy in Amtrak's history. Will you commit to vigilantly ensuring that Amtrak funds are used efficiently and in accordance with law?
Absolutely.
And do you also commit to ensuring that Amtrak executive compensation, benefits, and bonuses are appropriate and based on measurable metrics such as ridership, revenues, and safety?
I would have it no other way.
Thank you. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kenton, my first question is for you, sir. At last week's hearing, I raised concerns with the administration's attempt to basically find a back door to abolish the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program. And on top of that, on Friday, the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office heard from the Department of Commerce that they were terminating funding for their digital equity grant program. That's formula funding that has already been awarded to local communities and has already been spent by those communities in the state of Michigan. And basically what it does is it increases adoption of high-speed internet, raises awareness about cybersecurity, particularly for vulnerable groups like our seniors, digital skills workshop training, as well as educating consumers on online privacy, just to name a few. The federal government, in my view, and I think the view of the courts as well, can't promise funding to a community, then simply refuse to pay when the bill actually shows up. Both of these programs, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership and the Digital Equity Grant Program, are authorized and fully funded, clearly and very specifically by Congress. You've been nominated to fulfill the role of the top legal advisor to the Department of Commerce. So my question, I think, is fairly simple and straightforward. Without input from Congress, is it legal for the administration to simply cancel funding for authorized and fully appropriated programs put into law by the U.S. Congress?
Thank you very much, Senator. I'm not yet confirmed as General Counsel of the Department of Commerce, and I certainly recognize the importance of the issues you've raised and you raised in the prior hearing. I have not been involved in either advising or implementing the actions that you describe. I certainly would prioritize, if I'm honored to be confirmed, looking at those issues, looking into those issues, working with the relevant Bureau leadership and with counsel at the Department of Commerce.
Well, I understand, and I tried to highlight a little bit of issues, understood that you're not there now, so I fully appreciate that point. But this is basically just a legal question that if Congress has authorized funding by law, can the administration just say, sorry, we're not going to do it? Aren't they supposed to faithfully execute the laws of the United States of America?
Senator, I hear you loud and clear. I think if I am confirmed, I will make it a priority to look into those issues. I have not, as I say, advised on or been a part of implementing the actions that you describe.
Well, if confirmed, we will reach out and we'll have those conversations and hope you'd confirm or commit to doing that.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Fink, in 2022, before Pan Am Railroads or Railways became part of CSX, an FRA audit found, quote, significant safety issues are not receiving the serious and thoughtful consideration by railroad leadership at Pan Am's employees and the public deserve, end of quote. That was in 2022. I think you left shortly after there from the railroad as well. This was on top of court cases that occurred during your time at Pan Am that found, quote, again, a culture of intimidating employees. And that as of 2017, quote, 99% of injuries at Pan Am that were reportable to the FRA triggered formal charges against injured employees. So based on what I look at a very concerning record from these audits, I have a couple questions for you. First, do you accept the FRA's findings about Pan Am's railroad safety failings?
No, sir, I do not, and thank you for the question. The safety audit was done in 2022, and there were some issues that I took with it. First off, I would say there was a statement about our lack of a safety culture. We're the only railroad that's done 2 safety culture audits, I think, in the country. And we took the information that we got from that and we improved on our safety. So when they said we didn't have a safety culture, I just disagree, and that's just not true. We also work very closely with organized labor. I did 14 times per year, going out into the field, meeting with the people and finding out what the issues were that were out there, whether it would be walking issues or tripping hazards or situations with locomotives, and we would correct those things, or situations in the shop to try to make things safer. And that's where our employees came with their union representatives, and we talked about those things and made things better.
So if I may, so you have an audit that has a number of findings and recommendations. Do you believe if you get an audit like that, you should respect that audit and at least answer the audit and show exactly in a concrete way as to how you're addressing the findings?
Yes, sir. And our folks did do that and wrote a letter back to the FRA and was working with them all along on these issues. And the audit popped up because we had an awful, tragic accident with a 41-year employee, long-term employee that lost his life working for our company. And that triggered.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That triggered the audit. The audit went through a lot of different items, and I took exception to the lack of a safety culture. They came in, they looked at things. There was definitely some defects. It was a 49-page audit, and they came up after that with 2 violations.
But I want to say, I just in my remaining time here, do you accept that when an audit, you have to take it seriously? When an audit,
sir.
Because as you know, to have for the FRA, we can't have a culture where railroads say, oh, I got a bad audit, but I just disagree with everything there. Forget it. We cannot have that when it comes to safety. You heard my opening remarks. This is personal as well. We have people that are seriously injured and die. Safety has to be paramount. And someone who dismisses audits or thinks they're just unjustified on a regular basis, I have real concerns about. So please assure me and the committee that these audits are something that you will aggressively enforce when it comes to talking to the railroads.
Absolutely, sir. I did not want to lightly talk about that. I took exception with some of the items that were in the audit. I will definitely work on those. Safety is the first importance in the discharge of duty, and I will not waver from that at all as administrator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and Mr. Fink, I agree with you and Senator Peters that safety has to be first. What was your railroad's objective record when it came to safety and accidents compared to your peers?
So when I look at our objective record over the last 10 years that I was there, with the railroads in our class, the Class 2, there was 11 railroads. We came in 3rd. In the Olympics, that's a bronze medal. I'd love a gold, but a bronze isn't bad, and we're always working to do things better every day.
So your safety record was significantly better than the majority of your peers. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely accurate.
Okay. Senator Moran.
Chairman, thank you. Mr. Fink, let me begin with you. Railroad safety is what we're talking about, and I want to continue in that vein. Freight rail has always had and already has a high safety record, but we know improvements could be made, as you have said. In my view, one of the simplest and easiest ways would be to modernize FRA's regulatory approach and allow railroads to innovate and deploy safety technologies across the network. If confirmed, will you commit to ensuring FRA becomes a valued partner, a partner with the railroads in incorporating new technologies and processes into the system?
Thank you for the question, Senator. It was nice bumping into you this morning at the cafeteria. Yes, absolutely. Technology, I think, is important. We have a lot of items out there that can make a safe railroad even safer. I want to work with the parties involved, certainly work with the Office of Safety, continue to gather data, making sure that this technology that we put out there is going to be fail-safe and it's going to be better than what we have today.
We have utilized in Kansas the FRA's Corridor ID program. That's a program that's allowed communities the opportunity to examine passenger rail planning and development to assess new routes needed in order to adequately connect unserved or underserved communities. We benefited in that over the years, that program over the years, with our year-long effort of extending Amtrak's Heartland Flyer. Heartland Flyer would connect to Oklahoma City, which then connects to Fort Worth. That would benefit our entire state, but Wichita and Newton, Kansas would become beneficiaries, significant beneficiaries. If confirmed, will you commit to supporting the Corridor ID program, particularly as our Kansas Department of Transportation and its partners prepare to advance the second step of that effort?
Senator, thank you for the question. I'm not familiar with the Corridor ID program. I'm looking forward to sitting down and learning about all the different programs. I've read about a lot of different programs. I've worked with Amtrak over our career. We ran 12 Amtrak trains a day on our little railroad. We were a preferred host of Amtrak. So I look forward to working with the Amtrak management and adding and looking at how we're going to work on and improve the national network for Amtrak. So you have my word on that, but I need to get there and check check these programs out, and I'd be happy to report back to you.
Mr. Fink, I'm happy to highlight the program to you and allow you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask Mr. Gleason, the support of long-distance passenger rail. I've had this conversation with nearly every nominee while I've been in the Senate and on this committee about their commitment to long-distance passenger rail service. I have on occasion have utilized the Northeast Corridor, but I want to make certain that the railroads that serve the vast geography of our country are not overlooked. Tell me about your commitment to long-distance passenger rail.
I am committed. I've ridden long-distance trains. I rode the California Zephyr from Chicago over to San Francisco, and the Pacific Coastliner, and use the auto train on a regular basis. We do need that. We absolutely need that. And I think that, you know what your state needs, and I look forward to working with you in order to provide the necessary passenger rail for your state. We need more passenger rail, I believe, in this country.
Thank you. Mr. Gentin?
Yes, Senator.
I've asked this question of nominees for general counsels at the departments that I serve on committees and have jurisdiction over, and it is this. Would you confirm to me that if asked, you would provide your client, the department, with advice that requires them to follow the law and the law as defined in court orders and decisions? And the point here is recognize that those court orders and decisions are required to be followed?
Yes, I would, Senator.
Without exception?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Start with you, Mr. Fogel. Enjoyed our discussion yesterday. As I explained, I've long done work in the area with foreign commercial service and really believe that it's a opportunity for, especially for small businesses that may not have full-time trade experts, to access markets. And I have numerous examples from my own state that we discussed. National Rural Export Center in Fargo. You wouldn't think I'd be asking about Fargo, but it's right next to Minnesota, to the point I call it Moorhead Fargo, but Senator Hoeven may disagree. So Senator Hoeven and I have been leading efforts to permanently establish a rural export center within the U.S. Commercial Service to help rural businesses export their products. I suggested that at some point you should talk to him about it. Could you talk about the importance of rural exports and the work that's done in the department, in the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service when it comes to rural?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. And like you said, it was great speaking with you yesterday. Look, the Foreign Commercial Service plays an essential role in trade, and you mentioned the rural export centers. Agriculture is a key issue. It's a priority of President Trump. The agriculture trade deficit went up significantly in the last 4 years, and he has made it a priority to bring that down. We're already starting to see results with the UK, and I think we'll see more with other trade framework deals that the president and his team will enter into. But there is a big role for the Foreign Commercial Service, the U.S. Commercial Service, to play. What they do, as you alluded to, is help educate small businesses in particular, but all businesses, for exports, what markets to export to, how to deal with non-tariff barriers, import restrictions, et cetera. And as we talked about, if you're a small business owner and you've never exported before, you really need expertise to help get you over the hump.
Of course, I am very concerned about the effect of these tariffs. I'm not going to spend my precious 5 minutes on this. Maybe I'll ask you more later, just on farming. When soybeans especially, already the market in China was down to only 20% of the market. The rest went to Brazil from the last Trump administration, and now they're concerned they're going to lose it all over. So I hope that we can get in a better place, but it's been a real problem for farmers. Next up, Mr. Gleason. Last year, Amtrak launched the new, I don't know if you know about this, the Borealis line, which runs along the Empire Builder route. And they added a second daily train from St. Paul to Chicago. There was only one, and that was always a problem when there was just one. And interestingly enough, there's 11 stops in between The ridership exceeded expectations. It's reached 100,000 riders in the first 5 months. And in your testimony, you discussed the economic importance of passenger rail to the towns they serve. This stop, as I said, 11 stops, 3 are in Minnesota, St. Paul, Red Wing, home of Red Wing shoes, and Winona. Will you commit to working to improve and maintain passenger rail on long-distance routes that connect rural areas to urban centers?
Absolutely, and you know, that story of the Borealis is amazing, and it just shows that the people of America, they'll ride the trains if they're there. So absolutely, I am committed to that.
Okay. There's another train that we're looking at. It's been long in the making. It's along an existing route that I ask you to look at if you're confirmed. It's Northern Lights Express. It's in Representative Stauber's district, pretty much in northern Minnesota, Republican representative, but it goes from the Twin Cities up to Duluth. It's not running yet, but it's something that was one of the, next up situations which would not involve building a lot of track. It is existing use for shipping and the like, and there's many colleges up in Duluth. It's a kind of a growing area and big tourist area, and also the same thing, routes along the way. There's a lot of interest, so if you could look at that, I would appreciate that.
Certainly.
Thank you. And then last up, Mr. Fink, blocked rail crossings, always been one of my priorities just because we have so much shipping going on in Minnesota. We're the 4th biggest ag exporter in the country. We've got tons of other manufacturing things we're making. We go to ports, the Port of Duluth a lot, and then we go down the river, down the Mississippi River. And as you noted in your testimony, FRA's grant programs are a way to ensure safety and efficiency. The Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant does just that by supporting projects that eliminate at-grade crossing. We've had a number of really positive projects where we've eliminated a rail crossing where there have been a lot of deaths or accidents by going under underpasses, overpasses, you name it. Do you commit to addressing blocked railways and ensuring funds appropriated to the RCE are spent as directed by Congress?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. In my previous job, the majority of the questions I would get from congressional staff was, why is your train blocking our crossing? So I understand it from the railroad side, and now I'm going to learn it from the FRA side. It's important. My interview with Secretary Duffy, that's the second question he asked me, why can't railroads not block crossings? And we explained some of the idiosyncrasies of that. That's going to be an important continued data gathering. I think the grant programs are important, and we've seen some real progress. And I think this technology is another piece of where technology will be able to help us with block crossings. You have my commitment. We're going to be working on that right away.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And I'll ask you, Mr. Kenton, questions in writing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Capito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here, and thank you for the visits to my office. I very much appreciate that. You said it's a hard G, Genton. Did I get that right?
It's Genton, Senator.
Genton. Oh, sorry. Several West Virginia companies are seeking rulings from Commerce on anti-dumping and countervailing duty orders to protect against unfair trade practices. Given the increased use of third-party countries to circumvent our trade laws, how will you ensure that the Department of Commerce effectively enforces anti-dumping and countervailing duty orders to protect our U.S. industries from unfair trade practices?
Thank you, Senator. I think the President and Secretary Lutnick have been very clear that one of their goals is to ensure that the United States is treated with fairness and respect in the global trade regime. If I'm honored to be confirmed by this body, I will certainly work with the leadership of ITA and BIS along with counsel at the Department of Commerce to ensure that West Virginians and other Americans are treated fairly by foreign companies.
Thank you. Do you, I don't know if you know this in the depth that you will once you're confirmed, but what legal standards need to be met by the Department of Commerce when they're initiating a trade investigation?
Senator, that's not something I've delved into in my current situation, but I'm glad to look into that and prioritize that if I'm confirmed.
Thank you. Mr. Fogel, welcome. And I know from your private sector background and prior public service, you appreciate the need for more investment here, domestic investment, certainly on the emerging tech side. Cutting-edge technology requires infrastructure to support it, and I'll put a plug in for my state as an excellent place to make those investments. What vetting steps would you take to ensure that bad actors or national security threats do not gain a foothold here while ensuring we're open for business? In other words, the vetting process of figuring out where the investment's coming from.
Right. Well, thank you, Senator. It was nice meeting with you. Absolutely, what you're talking about is really important. On the export side, I know you're asking about investment. I'm a huge advocate for exports because the global markets team is responsible for exports. But at the same time, we need to be careful that we're not just exporting for export's sake. We need to be mindful that we're not sharing technology, proprietary technology, with bad actors, particularly China. On the investment side as well, although it's not really the responsibility of the global markets team, I would want to work with my interagency colleagues as well as my colleagues at Commerce to make sure that the foreign investment coming in is not being used for any kind of insidious purpose.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's an important aspect as we look to the future. On rail safety, Mr. Fink, you and I talked about the accident that occurred in Ohio or just outside the boundaries of West Virginia and the impacts that it had on major railroads and major railroad safety. What can we do to make sure that the safety measures, we didn't pass a rail safety bill, but the safety measures that you learn from, lessons learned from NTSB and others, are quickly and effectively implemented by the railroads to prevent future accidents?
Thank you for the question, Senator. The East Palestine derailment was an awful tragedy that really shouldn't have happened, and it was technology to stop it from happening, but it happened. I think the railroads have voluntarily put more sensors out there to see if certain bearings are heating up and stop the train, so we don't have the same thing happen in East Palestine. And there's other things that I look forward to. You know, my job is the enforcer of the laws that you pass. So when you pass a law, we will look at it, and the FRA will enforce that law, whatever you come down with on what we should be doing on different items of rail safety. And I look forward to that happening if confirmed.
Thank you. And Mr. Gleason, thank you for the visit as well. And we talked about the lines that go through West Virginia, the Cardinal, which only runs 3 days a week, which we'd like to get that service up going out to Chicago, and then the Capital Limited, with a lot of West Virginians use to commute into DC quite frequently. You know, I didn't tell you this, I'd actually forgotten about this, but I do want to thank Amtrak because over the last several years, they have improved the access into the boarding stations for folks with disabilities and modernize those. Even in a couple, like in Montgomery, West Virginia, which is a smaller town, made it so that people could easily access. And that, I think, to me, is extremely important as you're looking on how do you get more people to ride the rail. You have to make it accessible for all types of disabilities and ages of passengers. But I did say to you, and I'm going to say this publicly, that the last time I rode an Amtrak train, I found it was not maintained to what I think the standards that American passenger service should be maintained to. And so I hope during your tenure on the Amtrak board that you put a heavy emphasis on that as well. I know there's new trains coming on board, and I know some of it's because of the old and age of the particular cars, but I think we can do better here, and I think we need to.
Thank you. I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been seriously concerned about the role that the Department of Government Efficiency, otherwise known as DOGE, is playing in driving some of the chaos and upheaval in the Commerce Department, including shutting down the Minority Business Development Agency. For example, as I raised in this committee last week, Elon Musk and DOGE are playing an outsized and highly questionable role at the department. So, Mr. Genton, since joining the department in February, have you ever met with Elon Musk?
Yes, Senator. I attended a meeting, one meeting where he was also there.
Who else was present?
This was I would say, a casual meeting. People were walking in and out. It was also some time ago. I was there.
Where was it?
It was in the White House, Senator.
And what was discussed? Did you discuss any of the plans that DOGE had for the Commerce Department?
No, it was a very high-level discussion, a casual discussion.
Mr. Genton, have you ever met any of the members of the Department of Government Efficiency while working at the Department of Commerce?
Senator, I was introduced to two members that I understood were associated with DOGE in the hallway. Casual introduction, just a few seconds, really.
Was one of them Nate Kavanaugh?
No,
Okay. Do you know who the two DOGE members were?
I don't recall their names. I know it was not Mr. Kavanaugh. His name came up, I think, in a prior hearing. I don't recall that it was him.
And are these DOGE members now department employees, the ones that you met?
I don't know, Senator.
Okay. I want to just register my serious concern about the role that DOGE played in dismantling the Minority Business Development Agency. I also believe that they played a significant role in creating instability in the manufacturing extension partnership. Are you familiar with that program?
I'm not, Senator.
Okay. So earlier this year, the Trump administration did not renew contracts for 10, it's referred to as MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So they didn't renew contracts for 10 MEP centers, causing great alarm across the country and in Wisconsin at our MEP center. And while these contracts have now been restored until the end of the fiscal year for a few more months, this jolt of instability for the Manufacturing Extension Partnership is both unwelcome and unnecessary. Mr. Genton, if Congress does its job and appropriates funding for the MEP centers, will you renew their contracts as is standard practice while you are serving in this position?
Thank you, Senator. I certainly recognize the importance of this issue for you and for Wisconsin. I'm not familiar with it. If I'm confirmed, I will gladly prioritize this and look into it.
Mr. Fink, thank you for meeting with me. I was planning on asking some of the specific questions that Senator Peters just asked you about the audit and the critical safety concerns with Pan Am's long-term safety record and apparent failure of Pan Am's leadership to take action to develop a positive safety culture. That's a readout from the February 2022 FRA Chief Safety Officer's letter. But I wanted to just draw some attention to another aspect of leadership at Pan Am that was cited by the railroad that acquired Pan Am. When CSX acquired your railroad, their CEO testified that the track and infrastructure in some cases was in such poor condition that, quote, it was so overgrown with trees and weeds you didn't even know there's a railroad there. Can you comment on what commitment to safety could have led to the condition of rails as the acquiring CEO testified?
Thank you for your question, Senator, and I enjoyed our visit yesterday. As far as CSX purchasing our railroad, I spent several days taking their chief operating officer over most of the railroad lines. Mr. Foote's comments were on one specific piece of track that was in a very area that was an overgrown wetland. We strived every year to improve our capital and improve our railroad. When we gave the railroad over in June of 2022, it was in the best shape it'd been in 20 years. And that's not just me talking, it's what were we doing as far as safety and train accidents. So our record versus our connecting railroads. We were as good or better. Our safety culture was there. We had done safety culture studies. We handed the railroad over to the CSX in good shape. They knew exactly what they're getting. We cooperated with all of the states that we worked in all of the time, did a lot of cooperative joint ventures allowing passengers running on our freight railroad. So, I mean, overall, I'm proud of the work that we did over the 20 years. There certainly were some issues. They've been raised. I've talked about my thoughts on those issues. My job as FRA will be the chief person to enforce the laws, and that's what I will be doing. And I'll be certainly working with you in the committee to make sure that you're happy with what we're doing at FRA.
Thank you. Senator Lujan.
For General Counsel for the Department of Commerce. I have a few yes or no quick questions for you, and I would appreciate a quick yes or no response. Yes or no, are you familiar with the bipartisan infrastructure law from 2021?
I'm not sure I am, Senator.
Well, boy, Mr. Chairman. So we have someone before us to go to the Department of Commerce that's not familiar with one of the biggest pieces of legislation that this Congress enacted in a bipartisan fashion to build infrastructure in America. Is that correct?
Maybe there's an aspect of the law, Senator, you want me to ask about. I may not be familiar with that name.
Are you aware with the it was called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law in 2021. It was referred to by other names as well. That doesn't sound familiar? Well, nonetheless, are you familiar with something called the Digital Equity Act?
I'm aware of the fact that there is a program, a grant program by that name, Senator.
Can you tell me what that program is?
My understanding is that is a program that is designed to make the digital economy available to Americans.
So my question is yes or no, is the purpose of the Digital Equity Act to help close the gap in broadband adoption and support programs that help provide children and seniors with the skills they need for the digital age?
I don't know the details of that program, Senator. I would defer to you if that is how the program is described.
I will stand by that description. Yes or no, does Article 3 of the Constitution say that judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court?
Yes, Senator.
Yes or no, did Marbury versus Madison, a Supreme Court case from 1803, establish judicial review?
Oh, you're taking me back to law school, Senator, but that sounds correct.
Yes or no, does the judicial branch have the sole power to declare a law unconstitutional?
Senator, certainly the judicial authorities have the right to review laws for their constitutionality.
Yes or no, did the President declare the Digital Equity Act, a bipartisan law passed by Congress, unconstitutional in a Truth Social post?
I'm aware that the President issued a Truth Social post regarding the Digital Equity Act, Senator.
May 8th, 2025 at 4:38 p.m. Yes or no, does the Constitution grant the President the power to nullify entire sections of laws passed by Congress?
Senator, I have not looked into in any way the constitutional issues that you just flagged relating to this. I have not done so.
In law school, did they teach you that the President can nullify?
I don't recall that was discussed when I was in law school. It was a long time ago.
Where'd you go to law school?
Columbia Law School, Senator.
On Friday, this letter was sent out from the President of the United States, the Department of Commerce, to constituents in all of our states, nullifying this program based on what President Trump said. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick and we agree that this is totally unconstitutional. I owe my colleagues from across the country whose constituents are depending on this program just to get connected to the internet. That's how this all happened, that we can work together to reverse that. Mr. Fink, under your leadership, the railroad you ran was found to have, quote, critical safety concerns, culture of retaliation, high accident rates, and extremely poor track conditions, which increase the risk of derailments. The FRA, the agency you are nominated to leave, attributed these to, quote, failure of Pan Am's leadership. How can we trust you to hold this position and hold companies accountable to areas that were not met while you were there?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I would disagree that we did meet the standards, and there was a disagreement between our folks and FRA. And let me just say that anytime we had issues with FRA, we fixed things and we argued about them later. If they said something wasn't right, we fixed it. So we had a safety audit. I disagreed. We had a safety culture. We did safety culture studies, and our incidents and accidents were at or below the industry standards.
Mr. Fink, two of my colleagues asked you questions about the nature of the track that was covered in trees and all the rest. You responded that you took their safety person out and did a walk and whatnot.
Yes, we did.
My question is, are you contending that the CEO of CSX lied?
No, sir.
Appreciate that. Every time Amtrak employees have come before this committee, I've pushed for robust funding and support for Amtrak to improve and expand our nation's long-term rail network. You may have heard from Senator Moran, but Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico often get together when we start seeing attacks on the Southwest Chief. Yes or no, are you committed to advocating for increased funding for the long-distance network to address outdated equipment and maintenance issues?
I am for Amtrak being a national network and us supporting Amtrak as a national network.
What about the Southwest Chief?
I do not have any information on the Southwest Chief. I'm not sure where it goes. I will certainly work with the committee on specific Amtrak issues. I am for the Amtrak National Network.
Appreciate that. Before Senator Moran calls you into his office with the rest of us in there, I'd encourage you to learn about the Southwest Chief.
I will learn about everything I need to learn before I have to go to Senator Moran's office.
Well, especially the Southwest Chief. I'm telling you, there will be a meeting. It happens every year. The CEOs come in, well, the person in your position is going to come in and all the rest. So I hope we can find some commonality there. Mr. Chairman, I have other questions for the record. I'll submit them for a response as well. Thank you, and yield back my time.
Well, thank you. See, this worked out well. I get to ask questions from the non-cheap seats. I can see you face to face. It's a lot better. Mr. Fink, thank you for your willingness to serve. Actually, to all four of you, thank you for your willingness to serve the country. It's very appreciated. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that you could be doing in your lives at this stage, but signing up to serve your country's got to be, I'm sure, up there among the greatest honors. So thank you, especially given your qualifications and what this means to your family and the sacrifice you're making. Mr. Fink, you and I had a great meeting in our office, and we talked about the East Palestine train derailment. What do you think went wrong?
An overheated bearing burned off and allowed the train to derail in East Palestine, releasing vinyl chloride and other chemicals into the air.
And we talked about the Norfolk Southern and the commitment they've made. And actually, I got to give them accolades. A lot of times these companies get beat up a lot because of what happened. They deserve a lot of the press they got, but they've stepped up. They've stepped in East Palestine. One of the things they've done is created a training center for train derailment. So it's a center of excellence in the country for how to handle these. Do I have your commitment to support that training center with resources and make certain it actually becomes a world-class center for how to handle these disasters?
Yes, sir. We had a great conversation in your office. I'm looking forward to that. Also in visiting with your colleagues from both Pennsylvania and from West Virginia, they also talked about the first responder situation and the center that you're going to be building. Some of the folks that are sitting in our audience right now are first responders and also railroad employees that I spoke with before starting this conversation and mentioned the center in East Palestine. I look forward to visiting it when it's open.
That's fantastic. Well, perfect. Well, thank you, Mr. Fink. Shifting over to you, Mr. Fogel. The UAW, how do they feel about the tariffs? What is their viewpoint? And by the way, just to be clear, the UAW supported Joe Biden in this election, supported my opponent in this election. What's their general view of tariffs?
Senator, what I hear in the media is that they're supportive of the president's tariffs.
And why do you think that is, from your vantage point? Why do you think a union that has a heavy Democrat bias would be supportive of a Republican's plan, and my plan, which is to reindustrialize this country?
Right. I think it's, I don't look at the politics of it. I think simply the president is putting the middle class, the working class first with his trade agenda. So I think that's probably why they like it. And specifically for the auto industry, he's advocating for the U.S. auto manufacturers.
And give me a sense in your mind, the scale of the problem over the last 25 years. What has happened to our industrial heartland as a result of presidents that haven't stood up to make certain that we had a level playing field?
Well, I'll mention I have firsthand experience with this center just briefly. I mean, my current business is a data center business, but we located in an old industrial area of northern New York, which I'm sure, like parts of Ohio, have been decimated by the offshoring of manufacturing, and it has really hurt this community. The population level is down to 1950s levels. Income levels are down, unemployment's high. So, you know, I'm very pleased to see the president prioritizing bringing back those types of communities by onshoring more manufacturing.
And right now, I think the current number is somewhere around $6 trillion. There's now another $600 billion deal signed with Saudi Arabia. $6 trillion and counting of new investment in America. What do you think that means for places like Ohio?
I think there's going to be a rejuvenation of America's heartland, frankly, as a result of the president's policies. As you mentioned, trillions of dollars of new investment, and I'm very optimistic.
That's great. And I can count on you to make certain that you make certain that Ohio manufacturers have a level playing field when they export their goods around the world.
Absolutely, Ohio and all states.
Oh, I only care about Ohio. Mr. Genton, you obviously have to paper these deals. What's the level of difficulty that some of these countries put on when making these trade deals? In other words, how tough of a negotiators are they with the United States?
Thank you very much, Senator. The trade deals are really being handled by both the United States Trade Representative and colleagues in the Department of Commerce. I personally have not, in my current role, been involved in negotiating those trade deals. My sense is, just knowing Secretary Lutnick and certainly under the direction of the President, these are difficult discussions, but I think the administration is committed to doing what is required to protect the American people so that the outcomes are favorable for our country.
And over the last 110 days, have you ever seen a president more committed to making certain that American companies and American workers have a level playing field than President Trump?
I have not, Senator, and it's a source of great inspiration for those of us in the Department of Commerce.
It almost makes you wonder what happened with presidents before. Like, why weren't they making certain that American workers were on a level playing field? Does that cross your mind as well?
It does, Senator, and I think it dovetails a little bit with what you said earlier. I think that is actually why many of us have decided to come back into public service. You see those of us on this panel and many others. It is a time where we feel that this is an opportunity to do something good for the American people, for all Americans, and it's an inspirational time to do so.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Gatton. And Mr. Gleason, I'm out of time, but thank you for being here as well. And I will now recognize our senator from New Jersey. Oh, from Delaware. First state and closer. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two of the nominees today, if confirmed, will have a significant impact on freight and passenger rail development in the United States, which are vital to our economy. A few, if any, rail corridors are as important as the Northeast Corridor, which includes Delaware and the Mid-Atlantic region. Any disruptions to these services would not only impact people, but it would cost millions of dollars a day. But before I get to addressing the future of rail travel in the United States, Mr. Genton, I need to address an issue that we've been experiencing with the Department of Commerce. Since February, you have been Secretary Lutnick's senior advisor, is that correct?
Since mid-February, yes, correct, Senator.
As you may know, Secretary Lutnick told me directly when he was here having his hearing for his confirmation earlier this year that he would not dismantle the Minority Business Development Agency and turn back the clock of progress, bipartisan progress from many presidents before him of supporting these businesses. My colleagues and I have sent multiple letters seeking answers about the reversal of his promise to protect the agency and dismantle it. Our first letter was March 24th. then another letter on April 17th, and most recently, we sent a letter on April 30th, less than 2 weeks ago. And we've since not received any kind of meaningful response. So I'd like to know, is Secretary Lutnick aware of our letters about dismantling the MBDA?
Senator, I'm not aware of those letters, and I don't know what Secretary Lutnick knows about those letters.
So again, you've been his senior advisor since February. I just want to confirm that.
I have been one of his senior advisors, Senator, which is a role.
That's the question. Remind me, did you attend Paul Dauber's confirmation hearing to be deputy secretary?
Yes, Senator, I did attend that hearing.
Do you recall many members, just like today, raised these exact letters, our serious concerns about what's happening at MBDA? Do you remember that?
I recall the topic of MBDA coming up at the deputy secretary nominees hearing, yes.
So I know you've said you've got a different role. Did you not feel this was important even for this hearing, just even in preparation for this hearing, because it's come up before, to even mention it to the secretary?
Senator, I'm very well aware of the importance of this topic to you and to other members of the committee. My understanding is that this matter is in litigation.
So it's my understanding that because of 21 attorneys generals fighting it, that it has been halted by a judge. But have you participated in any meeting, have any communication, anything regarding the letters at all?
No, I have not, Senator.
Okay, we sent these letters in the past 2 weeks, and so it's hard for me to think that this is not something you would have prepared for this hearing. I assume you don't know of any plans to even answer the letters, and I would assume that you would say, as you said before, you might prioritize it. Who do we need to contact at the agency to get an answer to these letters?
Senator, I will, coming out of this hearing, certainly go back to the Department of Commerce and try to follow up and try to get those letters responded.
So since you're the third person, my concern is, I don't like to use the term gaslighting, but that's what it's kind of feeling like. We just need some answers to what is the priority. The secretary said it was a priority. Past presidents have said it was a priority, going all the way to Richard Nixon. So I hope that we can get an answer on that. And I'd like to switch gears right now to Amtrak and our stations in Delaware. This is a vital area for us. Our stations, our training facilities, the operations centers, the maintenance shops, services to Delaware alone have a combined yearly ridership of over 650,000 passengers and growing. Amtrak also directly employs over 1,300 Delawareans. Last week, we learned that Amtrak will be cutting about 450 management positions. Given the mass layoffs and reduction of force, I'd like to ask Mr. Gleason, what is your plan for being able to deal with expanding ridership at the time when we're shrinking the number of folks working there?
Well, since I am not on the board now, I don't know anything about that, but I mean, certainly Delaware has been wonderful as far as passenger rail is concerned, so I would hope that that would continue.
I would hope, if yield me 2 seconds, that I would have your commitment for a full transparency on the positions, the rationale, and any impacts to service that this might have on our constituents. I am all for government efficiency. I believe in it. But we don't make things more efficient by breaking them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Well, thank you. And your ranking member has been very gracious, Senator Kim, and said that you are next. We're going from east to west.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining up. Mr. Gleason, I'd like to just start with you. I guess I just wanted to just get a sense from you, how is Amtrak doing? If you were to give it a grade, how would you grade it?
Well, again, I'm not part of the Amtrak organization.
Well, I know, and neither am I, but I certainly have my opinions about how it's doing. I'd be interested
I think
in
it's doing pretty good. I recently took the auto train to Florida. It went well. I ride the Acela. I've ridden the California Zephyr. I've ridden the trains all over. I think they're doing better, but they could probably do better. There's no question about that. I'm a proponent of passenger rail. I think.
No, and I read your testimony, and I appreciated the sentiments in there. So I guess I'm trying to get a sense of what you're going to be doing in this job. So I guess when you look at the budget, do you think the budget is at the appropriate level, too high, too low? I'm just trying to get a sense of where your head's at right now.
Well, I'll be one vote on the board, obviously.
Correct.
And so, but a lot will have to do about your support of Amtrak. So, I mean, you know, you're the ones who give us the money to operate Amtrak. And,
We do so in consultation with
right,
the board.
Right. And I think that in the future that we could look into more private-public partnerships to get more revenue into Amtrak and expand it. I think there's a lot of ways to do it without just giving them taxpayers' money.
But you're not at this point in a mindset that you want to come in and cut the budget 20, 30, 40%. That's not
Absolutely not.
Good. Well, especially when it comes to the Northeast Corridor, I'll be honest with you, we're continuing the struggle. And there's been a lot of attacks over the years, a lot of proposals by colleagues of mine here, as well as during the first Trump administration, to cut budget for the Northeast Corridor. That is not something that is on your mind at this point?
No.
Well, I guess I'd just be interested in sense of your vision for Amtrak. I mean, I would quote a couple of things you said here. You said, improve and expand passenger rail service across America in a fiscally responsible manner. You also said passenger rail doesn't just move people, it drives prosperity. You agree with those statements you made are still right?
Well, absolutely. And if you read it in my statement, it's been devastating to my community to lose passenger rail
Yeah, I thought that was very powerful how you talked about it.
You know, we have 2 trains a day. It's terrible. That's all we have coming through a town that has the main line of the Norfolk and Southern Railroad go through it. And it's isolated our town from the rest of the world. And I'm sure all over America there are towns like that. So, you know, I think Amtrak and rail can be expanded a lot easier than building highways and a lot of other more expensive things. So I would like to, hopefully, that the support comes from the Senate and the government to expand Amtrak, and we need to look at other ways that we can fund this expansion.
Yeah.
Every senator so far has talked about trains that are running now in their states, and they're very happy about it, and their people want it. And I mentioned before, the younger people of America are riding trains a lot more. You know, the ridership in Amtrak is younger.
Yeah,
and many
that's
people
right.
today don't have driver's licenses, they don't have cars, they want to use public transportation, they want to ride Amtrak.
Well, I hope that I hope I can count on you then to work with me, because I feel like so often what happens here in Congress in the years that I've been here is we're just trying to tread water. You know, we're just trying to stop cuts from happening. But I like someone to work with where we could actually lay out what a vision of this going forward would look like. Mr. Fink, I wanted to just turn to you. If you could just explain to us very clearly and succinctly, what is the main mission of FRA?
The main mission of FRA is to make sure that the safety in railroads for the public, freight, passenger, that's it, safety.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I share with you. You know, we had a number of cases in New Jersey last summer where we had problems between our New Jersey Transit as well as the Amtrak, and it was causing just the entire system to short out. Does that sound like a safety concern to you?
It certainly does, and we had an excellent conversation about that in your office. Every day we're not having these issues with the pantograph is important. I think a lot of people are studying it, hoping they're getting to the bottom of it, so we don't have folks, including yourself, at Penn Station waiting.
Yeah, I mean, we just can't have the undermining. I mean, the reason people rely on these is they want something reliable in that way, and we certainly did not see that, but also it was a safety concern.
Right.
FRA played an important role in trying to adjudicate this. Do you promise that you'll work with me as well as those involved to make sure we get to the bottom of this? Because we can't have another summer, this summer, like we had last. And I'll be honest with you, I don't feel like I have the assurances yet to be able to look my constituents in the eye and tell them things are better.
You have my commitment. I've always worked cooperatively and collaboratively. Support letters from our partner that we did with Amtrak up in Maine where we started service. We were a preferred provider for Amtrak. The service we ran into Maine was always highly rated. So how we did that was getting together and sitting in a room and discussing the issues and getting to a solution. So the passengers were able to travel, Amtrak was able to run, and our freights were able to run in a safe manner.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Recognize the senator from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all. Congratulations on your nominations. I know you're ready to get today over with and then move forward with the process. Mr. Fink, I want to come to you. Memphis, it is one of our nation's logistics hubs. You've got all the railroads, you've got FedEx, you've got the river, the Port of Memphis. And I've heard so much from people in Memphis who work in the logistics arena, people that work with rail. They are very concerned about the intermodal rail yards in Memphis. I've had a couple of businesses actually describe it, saying it looks like a war zone because of cargo theft, which is a terrible problem. It is an increasing problem with the gangs that are there. But as administrator, I would like to know how you're going to work with communities like Memphis and how you're going to address what is a growing problem nationwide, which is cargo theft.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I had not heard of the issues in Memphis. I've seen over the years, particularly out in Southern California, where the trains were broken into while they were moving. So it's an issue that we need to sit down and talk with. I think the security folks from the railroads, our folks at FRA, we can sit down and find out what's going on and talk with the local communities. You have my word that if confirmed, I will work on that and we will try to come up with some.
Well, it is happening, and I would take the opportunity to highlight with you. This is happening, and it is a significant problem, and we would like to see some attention placed on solving this problem. Not a lot of time for talking. Action is past due. So an appropriate, timely assessment and action would be appreciated on that.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Mr. Fogle, Tennessee's a growing place. And I was just talking about what I call the Trump bump that has certainly our state has seen it. We've had since the November election 30 job or corporate announcements, companies that are landing their projects in Tennessee, about 1,900 new jobs, $1.2 billion in capital projects since the November election. And about half of that, pardon me, half of that investment is direct foreign investment. So it is important to our state that there be a participation and an awareness at the federal level. So when you're looking at handling global markets, what I would like to know is how are you going to work with states like Tennessee as they work to attract more direct foreign investment?
Yes, Senator, thank you for that question. As you're alluding to, the Global Markets Division of the Department of Commerce does focus on foreign direct investment into the United States, primarily through Select USA. In fact, their conference is going on right now. Unfortunately, I can't attend as a citizen. Obviously, I wouldn't go in official capacity because I'm here. But that's the mission of that team, is every day to attract foreign direct investment and then help guide foreign investors to various states based on what the investors are looking for and what the different states offer. I'd be happy to work with you about Tennessee specifically and learn more.
Well, we've got a great story to tell. One area, and Senator Cantwell and I were just chatting about this, we've got the American Music Tourism Act, and we're trying to get this run through the pipeline. Tennessee had 144 million visitors last year and $30.6 billion in direct spending in the state. And of course, music and entertainment is an enormous part of that. And I'd love for you to talk for just a moment how you can partner up on the entertainment industry as we look at this global marketplace and bringing that tourism to the U.S.
Absolutely, Senator. That is a big priority, that being tourism, travel and tourism into the United States. Global Markets does play a role in that, but there's an Office of Travel and Tourism, I'm sure you're familiar with, within the Department of Commerce, and they're dedicated to interagency efforts, and working with states, et cetera, to promote tourism. And I know with, the World Cup and the Olympics and the events you're talking about in Tennessee, there's a lot to do, and it's a big priority of the president.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I recognize the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand earlier Senator Cruz asked you, Mr. Jensen, about spectrum, so I wanted to go back to that if I could. Are you aware that the 2000 Defense Authorization Act required the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Commerce to all work together? That's what we were trying to do, certify that spectrum auction includes use by DoD. Are you aware that no such certification was made by the Trump administration? That never happened. Nobody worked together.
I wasn't aware of that, Senator. I'm very happy to look into that.
Well, I think the reason I'm bringing it up because what happened is then some DoD radar spectrum was auctioned, and there was a lot of confusion and interference. And so we obviously think that in the spectrum world, you should have, the test bedding of important issues before moving DoD spectrum. So are you also aware that I think Senator Cruz mentioned relocation fund, but he claimed that these funds enabled users to upgrade their capabilities, and that's not true. In fact, it only allows federal users to maintain a comparable. I am suggesting a legislation that we had last Congress that does give people the ability to upgrade, because I really do think that that is important. But I just want to make sure that we have the record correct, that mission-critical systems were turned off and no replacement was provided. And so that's a very important distinction, I think, in the debate, because I want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. We don't want to be in this vague area that somehow somebody thinks the law exists to protect DoD, when in reality, during the last Trump administration, it didn't, and we had some confusion, and we don't want to see it again. Okay, Mr. Fink, I hear 5 or so of my colleagues asked you about mainline derailment issues, and you were mentioning that you think there were some other statistics there, but we're talking about FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration numbers, which they say that you had an 850% higher than the other Class II railroads. Do you dispute the FRA numbers?
Our train accident records were in the middle of the railroads, my peer group railroads, so I don't know of any 850% higher for that. I do not know that, and that number makes really no sense to me.
Okay, well, in fact, in every year in the decade before you sold Pan, the railroad, the mainline derailment rate was double the average railroad. And the reason why the main line is so important is because we're talking about East Palestine, we're talking about areas that we think are critical for safety. Also, do you think that Norfolk Southern's responsibility was to clean up the mess?
Absolutely.
Okay. And your company was criminally convicted and sentenced for trying to cover up 90,000 gallon fuel in Ayer, Massachusetts?
It was 900 gallons.
900 gallons. So do you think you should have done that without the court decision?
We were cleaning it up. We did not properly report it, and we were fined and found guilty. Yes,
So what do you think that we should be doing moving forward to make sure that we have better alignment on product safety, cleanup, all of these responsibilities? What is your...
In that instance, we had an employee that didn't follow the procedure that they were supposed to follow. We were cleaning it up. We did not report it. We cleaned it up. We were found guilty of not reporting and had a very substantial fine.
Okay. Do you remember what that fine was?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You think that's substantial, hundreds of thousands of dollars, given what some of these communities, the lives? We'll do more for the record on this, but I represent a very big port state and railroad state. We move a lot of product for the United States, and oftentimes it's through very treacherous areas where the response to this can take a long time. The Columbia River Gorge, for example. So we want to see someone who's going to be aggressive about the continued evolution about information, involvement, first responders, plans for communities, and responsibilities, and certainly for follow-up of the legislation we've moved out of this committee that would have for very, very long trains the staffing that is required to keep all of us safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz. Gentlemen, the Chicago Hub Improvement Program, or CHIP, is a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation transformative project that will enhance rail service across the Midwest and across the nation. It will improve service in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, and Missouri, not just in Illinois, which is why there is bipartisan support for it. CHIP is making critical investments in rail infrastructure and facilities that will upgrade connectivity, enhance accessibility, reduce travel times, improve safety, and support good-paying jobs. Chicago is Amtrak's busiest station outside of the Northeast region, and more than 50% of Amtrak's long-distance services travel through Chicago Union Station. And trains that begin or end in Chicago Union Station make up more than 90% of Amtrak's services outside the East and West Coast. In 2023, the FRA awarded Amtrak nearly $50 million from the Federal-State Partnership for Intercity Passenger Rail to improve passenger rail efficiency at Chicago Union Station to benefit the national rail network. Mr. Fink, if you are confirmed, will you commit to working with Amtrak to ensure that all of those awarded funds get delivered to CHIP without undue delay?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I enjoyed sitting and going over many of the issues we talked about around Chicago. I am not right now up to speed on that. I am going to, if confirmed, when I get down and hit the ground running and sit down and talk about these issues when I get to FRA, if confirmed, and we can get to the bottom of the issues that you came up with in the meetings I've had.
If there are no issues, will you confirm that, will you ensure that all these awarded funds will get delivered without undue delay?
If there's no issues, yes.
All right, thank you. Furthermore, Mr. Fink, Chicago is a national hub for freight rail, in addition to passenger rail. Out of every 4 freight trains in the United States passes through Chicago. That is about 500 freight trains per day. If you're moving anything via rail from coast to coast, there's a good chance it will go through Chicago, which has more tracks radiating in more directions than any other city in North America. But bottlenecks in Chicago causes delay in the shipment of goods across the country. That is why freight rail companies, passenger rail companies like Amtrak, Metra, the state of Illinois, and the city of Chicago are partnering on the Chicago Region Environmental and Transportation Efficiency Program, or CREATE project, which is unclogging the rail network for the nation by building crucial underpasses and overpasses and upgrading tracks, switches, and signals. The first Trump administration recognized the importance of CREATE to our nation's economy and national security, which is why President Trump in his first term awarded $132 million to the program. Mr. Fink, if you are confirmed, will you commit to giving full and fair grant consideration for applications for projects like CREATE?
Thank you for the question, Senator. If confirmed, I will look and work towards making sure that these grants that are scored and for Chicago or other places are put out. That's one of my goals as FRA administrator. There's a lot of grants. There's a lot of things that haven't gotten out. Let's get them out and let's get things built.
Thank you. Will you also commit that you will not delay funding that has been awarded to projects like CREATE if there are no extenuating circumstances?
Again, I'm not there yet, so when I get there, I'm going to sit down and hopefully, I've heard a lot of these grants have been released in the last few weeks. Hopefully, by the time I get there, those issues will be behind us and we will be working on sending out new programs if you authorize them for grants in the future.
Will you commit to making yourself available to me to follow up on any of these questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I now recognize Senator Markey.
I thank you for that recognition. And my first question is on the Digital Equity Act grants. Last week, the Department of Commerce terminated grants to states under the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program. Congress specifically authorized and appropriated $1.4 billion in formula funds for this program. Mr. Genton, were you involved in any meetings or conversations about terminating state digital equity grants?
I was not, Senator.
Let me ask you this then. In your opinion, as a lawyer, is the decision to cancel, to terminate state formula grant awards faithful execution of the law passed by Congress?
Senator, I think Senator Lujan asked me about this as well, and I think it is important. We can all agree, I think, that everyone be able to participate in the internet economy. In my role as a senior advisor at the Department of Commerce, I've had no role in the digital equity issue. I'm aware that the president issued a truth about it, but I have not looked into the legal issues associated with that program.
All right, well, we passed the Digital Equity Act. We directed the Commerce Department to issue formula grants to the states, and we appropriated money for it. And now the department is simply ignoring the law. And I'm going to give you a chance, Mr. Girton, just to answer, do you think the terminations of these grants are lawful?
It's something, Senator, that I committed to look into if I'm honored to be confirmed. I do not have a view on that sitting here today.
Okay. In my opinion, the administration must rescind these termination notices immediately. It is completely unlawful what they have done. Mr. Fink, I want to turn to a rule issued by the Federal Railroad Administration last year requiring 2 crew members on Class 1 freight trains. I have long supported this rule, and I was proud to work with current Vice President Vance to be able to include a similar provision in the Railway Safety Act. At his confirmation hearing this year, I asked Secretary Duffy, sitting right where you are right now, Mr. Fink, whether he would stand by the Federal Railroad Administration's regulation. He said yes. So, Mr. Fink, do you agree with Secretary Duffy's position and intend to maintain this regulation?
Yes.
You will?
Yes.
Thank you. That is much appreciated. And now, Mr. Junton, I want to turn to you. I know it's an issue that Senator Peters raised in his opening remarks. Mr. Junton, during your staff interview with committee staff, I understand that you were asked whether Joe Biden lawfully won the 2020 presidential election. And so I'm going to ask you the same question. Yes or no, did Joe Biden lawfully win the 2020 presidential election?
Senator, as I expressed to the staff in my interview, President Biden was the president for 4 years. He was certified as president, and then President Trump was elected and certified. He is our current president.
So was Joe Biden lawfully elected as the President of the United States? That's what I asked you. Was he lawfully elected?
Again, Senator, what I can say is that he was certified and he served as president.
In your opinion, was he lawfully elected President of the United States? This is not about what happened. It's about what you view as the legal status of Biden in winning that election. Did he lawfully win the election or not?
Senator, I'm not an investigator of elections. My understanding and my belief is that President Biden was legally certified as president and he served as president.
I know that, but you're nominated to be the general counsel of the Department of Commerce for the United States of America, the top lawyer, and you're a seasoned attorney. So this is just a yes or no question. Was he legally elected as the President of the United States, Joe Biden? And your opinion on this is very important as a lawyer, so we can understand how you will be looking at legal issues that will be presented to you.
Senator, I think I've tried to answer the question as best I can. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to litigate the past. My purpose in being here today is to present my qualifications to serve as General Counsel of the Department of Commerce.
Again, I don't know how we can trust you as a sound legal voice pushing back on this administration's lawlessness when you can't even answer a basic question as to whether or not Joe Biden was legally elected. I mean, we're 4.5 years since that day, and you've had plenty of time to reflect upon it, but you're still absolutely unwilling to say that Joe Biden was elected. And that, unfortunately, is the position which Donald Trump is still taking. And that casts a very bad cloud over the electoral process in our country. you know, he was the clear winner. To the extent to which you're unwilling to say that that's absolutely legally accurate, is a very dangerous place for our country to be, especially given your legal background and the job that you're being asked to take, which is as chief counsel for the Department of Commerce. So we're standing now awaiting for the arrival of Senator Fetterman, and he will be here presently. We have a roll call, which is on the floor of the Senate right now, and I will have to go over to make that roll call, but we will have at the same time an ability to have time for recognition for Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania, so that he will be able to ask a round of questions of this panel. And with that, I will recognize Senator Fetterman.
Hi, hello, welcome. Hi, everybody. So 100 Amtrak trains run through Pennsylvania every day, including maybe 100 feet just away from where I live in Braddock, Pennsylvania. So, serving almost 7 million total passengers in my state. I don't see passenger rail as a political issue. I mean, you know, everybody ride that, red, blue. This is about getting people where they need to be. As a member of this committee, I will always fight to support and defend vital federal service, and I'm made very clear that I'll work with anyone as long as they're willing to do that. Since being sworn into the Senate, I've been working to expand passenger rail service through it across communities across Pennsylvania. One of the projects I'm pushing and want to expand was passenger rail to Reading, Pennsylvania. So, Mr. Gleason, you made clear in your testimony that you understand the importance of passenger rail for both big cities and small towns in our state of Pennsylvania. Can you commit to working with my office and the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority to get this service operational by 2029?
Absolutely. I've talked to those people in Reading for years. They're just like Johnstown. We lost our trains. We have 2 trains a day. We need more train service, and I appreciate your support for passenger rail. And I understand the whole Schuylkill thing needs to be supported, absolutely.
Does anyone else have anything? So now we feel like sometimes it might feel like it's under siege right now. I mean, is that accurate? Or like, do you feel better after the new administration, or like what do you think?
You mean about passenger rail?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I feel very good about it. I think that there seems to be a lot of support amongst the senators and a lot of people I've talked to. Younger people want to ride the rail now. The ridership of Amtrak is younger, and more people are looking forward to riding trains. So the support of the Senate is very important as we try to expand the passenger rail. And Pennsylvania, outside the Philadelphia area, needs a lot more support. So I'm looking forward to working with you for this support.
Okay, so now let's talk about safety. You know, over 2 years ago, of course, we were aware of what happened in East Palestine in Ohio, just very close to our border. My colleagues and I immediately got together and wrote the Railway Safety Act. The bill made sure tragedies like this doesn't happen again. That was a strong bill, very, very bipartisan. The vice president was one of the leads on it, and President Trump now said he supports it. In fact, it might be the only thing that Trump, Vance, and Biden, we can all agree on many of these things. But now it's stalled, and I truly don't understand why that's the case. I mean, I think we should all be on the same and be rowing in the same direction. And now, I mean, I live 100 feet away from an active rail. So I don't know why we want to prevent all these kinds of derailments. So, Mr. Fink, can you commit to helping to get this across the line. So, because all of America deserves this. And this was always being a very, very bipartisan piece of legislation.
Thank you for the question, Senator. We met with your staff last week, and the issues that you talked about with Mr. Gleason were also discussed with me. So I heard that and look forward to working on those issues. As far as legislation, my job is the person that executes the laws that you pass. So I'm the FRA administrator. If you pass the law, we are going to make sure that those laws are properly carried out. That's what I'm looking forward to. Right now, I'm waiting for folks to talk to me about the specific legislation, talking with the FRA safety people. Once you pass it, we will enforce it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should all agree. I truly, and I ask even my friends on both sides, like, we're not really sure why we still don't have that passed. But regardless, thank you all for your time.
If you could just read this to close out the hearing.
Mr. Fink, Mr. Fogel, Mr. Jensen, and Mr. Gleason, my final question is required of all nominees. If confirmed, do you pledge to work collaboratively with the committee to provide through the timely responses to the committee's request and to appear before the committee when requested?
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I have letters of support from various organizations for Mr. Fink's, Mr. Jensen's nominations that I ask unanimous consent to be inserted into the hearing record. Without objection, so ordered. Senators will have until close of business on Thursday, May 15th, to submit questions for the record. The nominee will still close till the business of May 19th to respond to all of those questions. That concludes today's hearing. The committee stands adjourned.